Hello and welcome back to 2.5 Coaches, episode 5 of the Perform
Episode
H.
6, man.
Oh.
Holy. You literally just said that before.
Sorry. We'll go again.
You literally just turn up, don't you?
Episode 6. I listened to the one last night too.
Episode 5 was your boy.
Yeah. Sorry.
What do you think of it? What do you think of his words about you?
Man, I actually really liked it. Got a little bit emotional before bed.
Yeah, a few tears.
I had a really good sleep last night. So my sleep score was 95 because I was listening to Benny Caldre's voice.
It's like raindrops on the roof. Anyway.
Old man wisdom.
Should we start with Around the Grounds?
Around the grounds,
Yep.
I'm just going to skip over Bayswater and go...
Oh, sweet.
Bayswater Rezzies.
I'll start off today.
Yeah, shout out the Rezzies again.
Yeah, big weekend for us, obviously, for Trinity with the AFL boys. I think we had a dry spell against Hale for the past, 6 years, and haven't really beaten them in the first footy. Finally got the win by 30 points in a weekend, which is pretty cool. I think, obviously, not playing a week before gave us an extra week to kind of prepare for that game. I think boys were a bit locked in. I think you could tell, even on Friday morning, when the boys came in for a session in the morning, they were locked in. I think looking at Macca, and usually he's the one that's out and about, real quiet, real locked in. And then I had a chat to him and he was like, I'm ready to go. I just want to play and win, which is pretty cool. And then, end up winning in the last quarter, absolutely rolled through the last quarter pretty well and finally got our win in the final home game.
Come a long way from last year.
Yeah.
Boys have made a lot of progress.
Yeah. I think coming last in the years prior, 2 years in a row, I think, really sparked a bit of feel with the guys, especially with the kids that played first in year 10 and then finally year 12. Had a bit of fire and a bit of spark in there, and then, it's pretty cool to watch. Mainly shed a few tears, just a bit different for all of us.
You'll love that you've put that on a podcast.
Oh, man. Don't know
Have
if
that on
he's listening.
record. Yeah, him and Huberman listening along.
Shout out Chris Main,
Your boy.
Main Academy.
Is there anything else rugby-wise? Ethan Pike.
Yeah.
Eighth in return. Yep, had a good game for Colts. I think played 20, 30 minutes. So he had made a few good tackles, which is the main goal of the whole return, especially from a shoulder return. It's probably the biggest thing that's in the back of your mind is the contact side of things.
Yep.
So he had a good game. What else do we have? Basie, obviously. Unfortunately, went down on the weekend.
Up the twos, though.
Up the twos.
How good?
No comments on the Prem's game, but not emotional at all. No scars there. But no, it was obviously quite sad. It is I think you put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah.
Especially this group. We started back in January.
Yeah.
With the field sessions and the speed work and everything like that. So it was quite disappointing to see that. But boys got on with it. And then the twos got up, they're on a big roll. They've got a good group of players together. They built their own little culture there. They're a huge chance, I reckon, this year. Obviously, it's hard when Prem's players get taken up and you don't have a bench.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a bench now, and that'll help them a lot in those last couple of weeks. They'll be quite competitive. And then Sharky's got a good win. We're back on the horse. It's a stepping stone. We've still got a lot more to go. But got a win. We've got a bye this week. And then we got South Perth next week before finals. So
It'll be a big game too.
Hey?
It'll be a big game.
Yeah, it'll be huge. But if you look at any successful organisations, Panthers, New Zealand, whoever
Peak
it
at the
might
right
be,
time.
peak at the right time. Yeah.
So
Still my words, man. What happened to you just being quiet? Anything else?
Then the NBL1 crew, obviously, for a first round of finals. So JB and Sam Bray, the boys got up against East Perth, so they're through to their next round. So they've got Willerton on Thursday night. And then once they win, they'll be heading up to Gero to play on Saturday. So that'll be a huge weekend for them. And then if all goes well, they'll hopefully be playing in the Grandy next week. Mm-hmm. Perry Lakes girls lost, so they'll be playing against
you're knockout elimination now, hey?
So they were in the qualifying final, so because they were top 4.
Yeah. So
they lost, so they'll be playing, if my memory serves me correctly, Willerton as well.
It'd be rude not to also add in Carter made his return on the weekend, which is pretty cool.
Huge,
12 months post ACL. Congrats to him. I think we meant to play 2 quarters, but went down with a couple of injuries, obviously, during the day, and he had to step up and played bit of halfback. A couple of big pack marks, I think 4 pack marks, which is pretty cool, and then topped it off with a cherry on top with a bit of goal. Nice. Missed that because we were in the changing rooms, but put up the game really good, so it's a huge win.
That's a huge win for him. I feel like half is going to get through this podcast and remember 3 or 4 things that happened on the weekend.
So I will add
We're
it
just
in.
I just blocked it
I'll
out of
just
my
have to
memory.
do a lot of editing and then move those bits
Yeah.
back forward. All right, so topic for the day, we thought, as some people are obviously very quickly approaching off-season, some people have started their off-seasons a little bit early.
We're looking to get a bit of a roadmap for you.
Yeah.
So
Roadmap.
essentially with off-season coming up, it's just get it in the back of your mind about a little bit of a game plan because it rolls around quickly and it's obviously the first essential checkpoint is like where's your headspace at?
Yeah.
Is your body, but then also where's your headspace at? Because it's a long year, it builds up. Some people are they're on the other end of it where like they're watching finals, they're really motivated, they're on this massive high and they try and jump on that quite quick. And then there's obviously others on the other side where they're burnt out, they're feeling cool, they just want to get through, have a little bit of a break. So I think there's just that little bit of a check-in with yourself or your coach, whoever it is, see where your headspace is at, because it's like you don't need to finish the game and then next week jump into off-season. You can have a break. You can have a little bit of switch off. And we've encouraged a lot of our crew, pause it for a week, pause it for whatever it might be, and then build back up from there. But yeah, so first one's obviously checking with your headspace. Second one's obviously checking with the body, seeing how you're feeling. So,
not uncommon for people to pick up niggles throughout the season. If you have had some sort of injury, this is obviously like the perfect time to be able to properly get on top of it, because there's, especially the last few weeks and especially leading into finals, everyone's kind of like, I just got to make it through, try to play those games. So you might be, in less than ideal situations where normally you'd have a couple of weeks off, but obviously that luxury is not there with having to perform at finals. So it's a good time to like actually prioritize those injuries, spend a bit of time with the rehab side of things, and really make sure you're setting yourself up really well for the next season, because so often people will have those little niggles, not really do anything about it, maybe a couple of weeks before the season, try address it, and then you just roll into the same thing next season. So getting on top of that nice and early is always big.
One. Yeah.
that's probably your first thought process is like, it's just the roadblock analogy. It's like, what do you need to do over this 8 to 12 week period to start to remove roadblocks? And a lot of the time that doesn't necessarily involve quite intense, hard off-season training, which is obviously advertised and everything like that. Like a lot of it can be quite moderate training, quite low to moderate intensity training, just getting in and clearing these things up. So if you can start to clear these things out of the way, that's kind of like phase one of off-season. Get the headspace right, get the body right, remove the roadblocks. If you can start with those three things, then you're in a good position to start building. But in that initial stage as well, what's something that we're kind of encouraging is obviously getting away from your sport.
Yeah, take some time away, whether it's like just away from the sport, obviously.
On a hobby.
If you have the means to go away, that's going to be huge. Even if it's, just a down south trip, if you're not able to get fully out of the country or anything like that, just have a bit of time away from training, away from sport, and just like kind of have like a just full mental reset. I think that's also really valuable. Even if you are someone who's watching finals right now, you're super motivated, you have that motivation now, but then you might get halfway through off season and then you're like, fuck, I need a break. So it's like, even though you're motivated, like try keep that fuel there and remind yourself that that's there, but actually have some time away for the next week or two. Because even though it doesn't sound like a long time with 8 to 12 weeks, like that's a while. You can get a lot done. A week or two at the start is only going to set yourself up better later down the track.
Yeah. And then from that other point, I think we touched on it in the other podcast, was like, we'll try quite hard to build a couple like social teams.
Yeah.
And like social scenarios of other sports, because I think that's one thing. We always review our off seasons from year to year. And I think that was one thing that was missing from last year's a social aspect, because it gets quite isolated in off season. You get a little bit over focused on your own goals, and you'd rather cruise through that while doing other things to keep yourself feeling fresh. So when it gets to preseason, it's not it's September through to August. It's like January through to August. So we can keep that mindset a little bit fresher. So social volleyball, hopefully we can start across the road. Social basketball.
Yeah, we started up a basketball team, so that'll start up this week. So that'd be
What
cool.
was the name of that basketball team?
PerformPodcast.
It's not the Perform Porcupines.
It is the Porcupines.
Unfortunately,
It is
it's
not,
on
no.
there. Shout
Or
out Jamie
cancel.
Wesseldine for picking the worst name for the team.
No.
But also, we're thinking about starting a social soccer team.
Are we?
Yeah, I think so. I
Keith
am.
is starting about
With a couple of
What
soccer
are you
boys in
calling
here,
it?
I thought. I don't know, clue yet.
Keith's Kickers.
Anyway, another one we can start up
Oh.
is like a touch footy team as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
But then
yeah,
like
that's not a bad
like
idea.
trying to get, because we'll obviously run the field sessions and the court sessions as well,
Yeah.
is trying to encourage the field athletes to go down the court
Yeah.
and get outside of that realm of the footy and everything like that, and try and push the boundaries obviously have fun, but then like test your skill, acquisition skill set in other areas, and then try and get the court guys down to the field sessions. And obviously that's us to be smart and not cause an injury in the off season.
All right, boys, week 1, 40-meter sprints.
Yeah, literally.
But the basketball court's 30 metres.
Basketball, full intensity, rolling ankles. But yeah, I think that's a big one, is if you can try and get outside of your sport, like we just said, and get into some other sports, you'll have a lot of fun. You'll keep that social aspect. You'll keep that like pressures off you, but you're having fun kind of feeling, which I think is quite big the more intense sport gets.
Yeah, and even from just a skill development standpoint, actually Austin Yoka made like a pretty good post about it the other day, but as strength and conditioning coaches, we often we preach about the GPP, like general physical preparation, particularly in this off-season period where we're just trying to get away from those really specific things, just get the body feeling really good. But even from a skill acquisition standpoint, like getting yourself outside of those very specific scenarios that you're practicing, expose yourself to other general skill qualities that are going to transfer eventually. Like if we look at that GPP, building the wide base physically, but having a wide base on a skill level, like evading defenders in different situations. Like obviously on a basketball court, you're going to be much more confined to smaller spaces, going to be more bodies in like a small space versus a bit more open space in something like soccer, footy. And so having the flip side and being able to read different situations, and obviously what you do very well, Isaac, with the drill design, it's like you can expose them to different things, not only within their sport, but also outside of their sport as well. And just building a very robust like skill acquisition ability, and then you can go into whatever scenario once it comes next season, and you can pick those things up much quicker.
You see it all the time where it's like kids that played multiple sports. We got one of the boys in the Basie team, Phil.
Yeah.
So he came from AFL background, and his spatial awareness and his ability to, that's been none of my training whatsoever. The guy's just got that skill down packed where in no space whatsoever, he can create space. Because he's been so used to playing a 360-degree sport where you've got this awareness of who are the bodies around you, where are they coming from, what pace are they coming towards you, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can get outside of that realm, again, rugby boys go to basketball, smaller space, less time before you got to make a decision. Yep. You're moving in more 360-degree motions. You're having to add layers of like movement capability. It just only adds more and more to it. So it'll be interesting to see because we haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to add that in a bit more.
Yeah, like we have had like a few of the court guys go down to some of the field sessions and join in on some of those drills. But we haven't had the flip, so that'll be very interesting.
Interesting to watch a 110-kilo bloke try to do a layup.
We've got to do like a 5v5, like rugby versus basketball, then a 6v6 touch. Basketball versus...
It'll be interesting to watch.
But then from there, so obviously, so the whole principle of trying to get away from your sport. But then from there, it's obviously like catching up with the coach, or even if it's you don't have a coach, whatever it is, like setting some like outcomes. What are you trying to achieve? Where are you trying to go? Like set where you want to go, and obviously set it your basic goal setting. Set it realistic.
Smart goals, mate. Smart goals.
reviewing your season and just seeing what you did right and what you did wrong, what you can work on. Writing on anywhere you want. Put on your phone notes, anything. Just at least when you go to the coach, you got something to talk about as well. And like obviously, don't just focus on the negatives and see what you can work on, but look at the positive and what you achieved as well. I think a lot of guys get caught up on, I had a shit season because of this and that. But you got to think about, like, if you play an injury-free season, that's a huge win. And what you see, we can actually work on for the next year. Yeah,
and then like hopefully, if you did do the same process at the start of the previous season, you can then go back and review that as well on a personal level. Because most guys, if you're in that higher level, like you'll probably have like an exit meeting or something with your sport coach, so then you can review that. But then also, if you do have an S&C coach, then it's a good chance to sit down and review the year that was and go, hey, like, I really enjoyed implementing priming sessions, or I really enjoyed implementing this certain style of training that I hadn't done previously, and I felt my body felt really good in these situations. So it's a good chance to go, hey, this worked. This is what we're going to try implement the next year. And you can very easily get caught up in this off-season period of like the GPP and just doing everything a little bit too broad as well. So it's like, as much as we want
motivation to train,
as much as we want to tick all boxes and give you a broad skill set on the skill side and a broad physical base, you still got to then be able to bring that back into the more specific thing by the end of off-season, pre-season. So it's like knowing what you're working towards in the long term is going to make it so much better. So it's like if I know speed's going to be a big priority, then in the initial stages, I'm going to be laying the physical foundations for that, building up hamstring capacity, blah, 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 skill tech in that a little bit. And then by the end of preseason, I want to be hitting some like decent speed meters and that kind of thing, rather than getting to that point and not having done the groundwork up until then, or you've just kind of faffed around and done a little bit too much of general stuff.
I think that's what we were talking about Benny yesterday. It's, again, that's come from experience, just objectifying everything. So like you said, like I think I've even got to remind some of our guys to like ask for feedback, like you said. Yeah. It's like, so you review it, you ask what the feedback is, what do you need to work on? You weren't strong enough through contact. You weren't fast enough getting away from your defender. You weren't fast enough in general. Then, like you said, you just reverse engineer back from there. Because there's the general qualities, but then obviously there's going to be something you need to walk away with. And when you come next season, we've had a few guys, I don't know if any cases off the top of my head, but like when you see that when it's like, hey, you're not strong enough, you're not going through contact, reverse engineer. I need to obviously just build general strength, and then obviously need to build like actual speed and power through my legs. Then I also need to build confidence in contact, body height, technical, da-da-da. You add all these objective metrics next to it, and then that's your answer. So that's where you remove this like, oh, I'm never going to be this, I'm never going to be that. You can physically build into quite a good player if you just objectify it and not just look and go, oh, they're the best player in the comp because they're the best player in the comp. So no, you can build up to that.
I think a big one for us as well in the off seasons, like we actually get to sit down when we talk to clients, obviously ask them what they need to work on, but also what we need to work on as well as coaches. I mean, we do it pretty well. It's like when we sit together and actually go through.
Yourself on the back.
Thank you. That's all me.
Well done, mate.
No, but like go through what you've done all season and what we could have done differently. I think good one was like someone like Benny, and Benny is a good one. Like you talked about, like because he's so much older than everyone else. It's like okay,
whoa.
Not no, Isaac, you're the same.
Quick, take it back now.
Sorry, Benny. But it's just.
Are you saying me or him?
Oh, him.
Oh, okay.
I know you guys are the same age, so.
Yeah.
Almost
25.
No, but just like going through and see like each year is a bit different. It's like what we can fine tune a bit better for the year after. And if he's got a different goal, then sweet, let's just add another goal to what we already achieved or what we could have done a lot better this year.
I think the review process. Like we always try and do that, and it at the start it does. When things happen in your coaching, it gets quite emotional as always because you put a lot into it. But we always say that at the end of it, like have a review. If anyone has a niggle, if anything happens, if they didn't get a result, review. Go back, look through your program. What did you? And it's the same thing every off season. We always ask each other, what are we going to do different this if we need to? What are we going to do different? How are we going to change it? How can we get better? Maybe it's just one or two things. Maybe it's less training. Maybe it's whatever it might be.
It's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like if it was successful,
just
keep building that momentum. I think a huge one as well is like obviously as S&C coaches we can view a lot of the like lack of performance or lack of like success in something as you just need to get stronger but then actually like reviewing it with the player and going, well, was that physically an issue or was that a skill issue? Like kind of like what you touched on. Like obviously there's going to be physical qualities that are going to aid that, but was the tackling you just needed more reps and you just need a better technique, and we just continue to build the physical qualities that are going to aid that, but that's never going to fix the root cause of that problem, which is like your technique wasn't there. The same with like, if I'm driving through contact, it's like to try to get it, like, and I'm struggling to finish around the rim, it's like, it's not a strength issue. It's just like, I haven't had enough exposure to that and I'm not able to like position my body well enough. It doesn't matter how strong I am if I'm not in the right position. So it's like, as much as we still are building those physical qualities, we still want to layer in the skill on top of that. And what is then going to become the larger focus is, all right, you've got a pretty decent physical base. Let's build on those, build upon that, but then focus more attention to the skill side of things, and then vice versa. It's like, all right, you're really skilled, but you're just weak as piss. Sweet.
So it's like having those conversations with your coach as well as your S&C, because they're both, and that's where pro sport sits, is that blend between the two and the conversations that they have in pro environments from day to day about they need this, they need that. So you as the athlete need to go back to your coach and be like, hey, ask for feedback, absolutely, have conversations. And then if need be, like that's where you always ask, whether it's a physio, whether it's a skills coach, whatever, like, do we need to talk to them? Is there anything they need from us? Can we provide anything? Because it makes our job so much easier if someone's like, hey, as a skills coach, they need this physical quality. Obviously, if it's correct, and we're like, sweet, easy, bang, done.
Yeah. Well, I can't count how many times that I've had either a skills coach or a basketball coach come to me and like they need to move quicker laterally. I'm like,
lateral quickness.
well, they're quick.
Yeah.
It's a perception, reaction
Yeah.
problem, not a physical quality problem. As much as we want to keep building that, like, they need to, very similar to the work that you do with the agility drills, they just need more exposure to that. And it's not the physical quality of not being quick enough, it's their ability to react and anticipate bodies in space. That's the issue. So it's just like they just need more reps of that, and then we just keep working, and like always going to try. It's not going to hurt you getting quicker, but it doesn't matter if you're quicker. And we've gotten, like, I can give you all the numbers and be like, yeah, you're 5-10-5 improved or whatever it was, but it's like you're still getting beat.
Yeah.
You still can't read a body.
I was like, thing they put up last night was like the success rate. Is it the biggest? I think this is learning from being an athlete. The biggest thing is that you in yourself get that like happy feeling of like, I am like successful at this.
Yeah.
So this is my quality that I'm good at. So it's always those people that are fast that feel confident being fast, and the people that are strong feel confident in contact. They need to see wins.
Yeah.
And if they win, we could get them as fast as possible. But if they don't win to beat someone around the outside, they're not going to have that confidence doing it in a game.
Yeah.
You just got to layer that in.
Yeah, it's just like everything, like having that, practicing those new kind of skills in a safe, controlled environment where it doesn't matter if you make a mistake.
Yeah.
You don't want to be going out on the field when there's a pressure situation and trying something for the first time. It's like, how much more can we explore these qualities and these skills and build confidence by having successful reps in training, that when you step onto the field, you're like, I've done this. Yeah. I know that when I get that opportunity to make that step and get open on the wing, I'm going to be able to just beat that defender, versus like, oh, am I going to get there? Am I not? Like,
which is tough because that's local sport.
Yeah.
That is literally local sport to the T, where it's like everything's, we follow the like obviously heavily GPP too much to the point where we separate it. Let's not touch that with a 10-foot bar.
Yeah.
And then they expect it to happen in the game. And if it doesn't happen, we're going to fucking yell at them.
Yeah.
You do this, do that. And it's like, I'm trying.
So, bro, I'm getting strong in here. You know, the sport will take care of itself. Yeah, all right, buddy.
It depends on the individual. Some have that mindset that they can just transfer it across. But there is a lot of athletes that just need that, like, bit of need some coaching. Need some support there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
Any
Well,
comments, Keith?
Nothing. You guys touched on it pretty well.
So moving on, so obviously we've got that initial phase. So number one, you're taking some time away mentally, physically, to give yourself a bit of a break, reset yourself. Yep. And once you're coming back into some training, you've had those conversations, you've reflected on the season that was, you've kind of set some goals going into the upcoming season and throughout the off season. We've then working into that general base, building that general base from a physical standpoint, but also trying to introduce some like real general physical qualities, whether that's just general skills outside of your sport, but then also just very general things within your sport. And then once we hit that point where we're looking probably like, you're probably maybe 4 weeks into the off season, then you're going to be starting to maybe get a little bit more specific, depending on how long your off season is. Like if you've got 12 weeks, you might prolong that out a little bit. But say maybe you're like a third to halfway through your off season, then what are we looking at there?
Yeah, cool.
I feel like it depends on when the season starts for certain sports as well. I think, like I know like rugby doesn't start till about January. Like
So I guess it's like, when does pre-season start?
Yeah.
Because obviously for AFL starts in
AFL guys
December.
they starting to start like end of November, start of December, so they start early, and they go through the Christmas break, and they still have to train during the.
So
Christmas
it's like
break,
we've got it, and this is the whole idea of knowing what's happening forward. So we've got to reverse engineer from pre-season. So if you know from and this is the battle that I have as well. As like I always feel like, and I understand that the aerobic testing stuff, unless there's been done, there needs to be at least 2 to 3 weeks of work done prior.
Yeah.
But most of the time, local sport will turn up day one. They'll get hit with this like in aerobic testing,
Beep test day one,
literally, and then obviously that pushes the chronic load out excessively at the start. Boom, boom, boom from there. So it's like, if you know you're starting in December, we know we're starting January. For all of the rugby crew, however it might be, a couple of weeks prior to that, they already should be running, but we're building that running load up to be sitting just below what they'll hit in preseason week 1. So if you've got December week 1 preseason, then sweet week 1, 2, 3, 4 of November, I'm going to gradually build up my running
2K,
load to tolerate a 2K, whatever it might be, a certain amount of speed dosing and stuff like that, to build into what you're going to be exposed to, because that's what's going to build you the best platform. So you're fresh, you've spread that quality across quite wide, you've started to build a few things, and then your base is sitting perfectly just under pre-season.
Yep.
So then when you start pre-season, you're not hit with this, I'm wrecked, I'm tired, I feel like crap.
Soft tissue injury starts.
And it probably brings us to rewind a little bit and the nutrition and recovery side of things. it's like it's probably around this. Not to say you shouldn't already, but like around that start of week 4 or so, we're going to start to dial the nutrition in a little bit more. And obviously we're around Christmas and everything like that. But if we can, depending on what you need to do with your body composition, but if you know you're sitting around that maintenance, a little bit of a surplus kind of calorie standpoint and quality as well, then we know that we can start to build with that increase in load.
Yeah.
And then you get to pre-season, you're not fatigued from lack of nutrition, lack of recovery, and then you're not obviously tired and sore and extra fatigued from the excessive training load relative to what you've been doing is probably quite important. So I think, obviously nutrition, big one, if you can add anything on that, but then also the like you said, the narrowing towards the top of the pyramid with your training load and what you want to do from there.
And it's just like like you said before, like it's just a reverse engineering process of like, hey, we're going to be assuming. So this is like a big one that we always try to have these conversations with the teams of the athletes that we work with if we're not already within that team. Yeah. Is just going trying to reach out to the S&C coach, the sporting coach, like what are you planning on doing week 1 preseason? What does your preseason look like? So then we can best physically prepare. So it's like same as an athlete, you can try reach out to your coach and be like, hey, what are we anticipating in here? What do I need to be ready for? So that I'm in the best shape to then not pick up any like silly niggles because we've just had this massive spike in load and just best physically prepared for it as possible.
I think most of the time you can kind of tell with certain clubs, like with the way that they run the pre-seasons. Like I know Perth Demons, fittest club, fittest team in the comp. But obviously ball skills is not like they're never going to sit. No, like that's literally like. But this year they're doing pretty well, like compared to years before. But they're known to be like a very fit club. And you watch how they run the pre-season, it's a lot of running. I think they build up to about 30, 40K weeks. And you know they're going to have to build up to that total. So like for them, you probably need to hammer a lot more on feet stuff. But then you will look at like someone like South Rio, where I know the highest they're going to hit is about 35. I don't know what Pete's running there now, but last time I was there, I think the highest we had like 35 in that week. And then we slowly built up to that like 2 weeks prior to when the season starts. And then at least you know, okay, sweet. Like I think this year they added a lot more speed stuff in the preseason, which is perfect. That means we don't have to do as much speed stuff as we did the year before. So yeah,
cool. What was I going to say there? But I think also, the questions around what happened the year before, where are they sitting, what's the coach's thought process as well, because we've obviously still got a lot of old school thought processes out there, like the smash and bash.
Are you getting a new coach in as well? Like
They're all bits and pieces, like is the club going all in to try and win a premiership? Like there's all those different questions, but obviously you as a player, if you can identify what's happening at your club a little bit earlier, find out who your coach is, find out what the plan is, depending on what level is, some might not even know. Like it just depends on where you're going. But at least if we've got that, like some kind of target to aim for, it's gonna make life a lot easier. And it's one of those things we can sit here and talk about it on a podcast, and we can tell you all the things to do until you do it, until you feel it, because everybody gets majority of the population get through first few weeks of preseason feeling like shit.
Yeah.
So until you actually do it yourself and experience it, and maybe we need to get a few of our athletes to come on and be like, it works.
Yeah.
I feel so much better. I didn't get injured in the first few weeks. But you've got to have a crack at it. And it's not easy because it's around a time where everybody's switching off and going a bit quiet. But, I think it's just part of that element. If you want to work smarter and not harder, you just got to build that gradual load up a bit before.
And in the topic of nutrition as well, it's like this is like the perfect time to actually trial stuff out. Like especially if we run like a field session on like a Saturday morning when we have to actually run, do a little bit of aerobic like running. You try some breakfast out to actually see if it sits well or not. Because in season, you're not going to try something out. Like I'm not going to have a huge breakfast before I play a game. At least I know if I try this out and if it doesn't work, okay, sweet. At least it's just a field session training. It's not like you're playing in a comp. Whereas this is where you go into pre-season, you can actually use it and be like, okay, well, I actually feel sweet. What can I change here? And then in season, you already know what you're going to do each time you're out there.
Yeah, I think that's massive and something that we've kind of reiterated through all of the podcasts as much as like the topic of primers, the topic of nutrition, the topic of recovery. It's like, and we've kind of come back to every single time, like this is the time to experiment. It's not the time to experiment going into finals. Don't try something new. Like if you've got something that's working, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Hail Mary.
But this is time, like, all right, I haven't done a priming session before. Hey, Isaac, I've got a field session this Saturday. Can I trial doing a priming session beforehand? How does my body feel going into that? And then just adding in all that kind of kind of stuff, like trialing different nutritional strategies.
Actually, like understanding what your body actually feels good. Because I know like someone like Byron, 2 quad strains, like for him, I started taking out heavy loads on a Monday because I know he's got a big game on a Saturday playing Prem's rugby. And then what we realised is when we took the heavy Monday out, he actually felt really bad towards the back end of the week because he needs that heavy load in the start of the week. So when we added that back in, we were like, sweet, he actually feels good for like a low, like a moderate session on a Wednesday. Instead of going like low, high, and then back down to low, he likes high, moderate, and then low towards the back end. So that's when you can actually try to understand your body a little bit better. Like what Benny said was good. It's like it's a trial and error. Your coach will kind of understand you a little bit more as well if you just communicate a little bit better. And then you can start testing some stuff out. And if it doesn't work, sweet. It's not going to impact anything. But if it does work, it's like, sweet, all right, we can bring this into next year as well.
Well, I think that's a big piece, like you just touched on, is the communication side of things as well, from communicating with the sport coach of like, you know, if you're someone who didn't get as many minutes as you wanted, like, why was that? What do I need to do to get that? Rather than just going, fuck, like, coach didn't play me, like, I thought I was doing all the right things. It's like, well, like, again, bringing it back to, like, objective measures, like, did I do what coach asked me?
Yeah.
Can I do anything to get more minutes? Can I do anything to earn a higher place on the team? And then coming back to asking your coach and communicating, hey, my body feels good when I do this. My body doesn't feel good when I do this. The more you can communicate and have a good quality, effective communication, the better everyone's going to be. Like, the more information that I have, I'm going to be able to make more educated decisions versus just guessing because I'm not really sure because the athlete isn't really telling me the full picture.
Which is, I guess, another skill set to practice in the off season.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things that in season, like, we're finding it's like that communication side of things and that awareness of you and your body and how it works and what works better and what doesn't, and pushing that feedback and trusting someone that if you push that feedback, they're going to make the right changes for you. Yeah. It's a skill set that you need to build on, because obviously not everybody has the best experience with coaching setups and how they talk to their skills coach versus their head coach versus their S&C or whatever it might be. So it's like you've just got to start to build that trust and really try and build and treat it as a big, like you said, experiment phase, and try and test and trial and communicate. Did work, what feels good, what doesn't, and try and really build that connection early. So then when it gets in season, fatigue's high, motivation's low, you've ingrained those patterns like Benny talks about, where he just does it and does it and does it and does it and builds that consistency. And if he gets away from it, it doesn't work. Yeah. You know you can go back to that.
100%.
And then from anything else in terms of the back end of off season and where we're sitting and what we're going to do, anything else like that? Because obviously from our perspective, we've obviously got the combines.
Yeah,
and that's one thing also. Like, the more we do these combines, they're incredible community days, but we also weigh it up for the individual. Yeah, relative. Not every one of our athletes does the combines relative to where their preseason is or whatever it might be. But obviously that'll be for a good group of our athletes from north and south. They'll be building in towards something like that. So, which is kind of perfect timing because we're sitting that at the start of December. Yep. So let's say it's not having preseason in December. A lot of them will build up to that. Then from there, they'll have a little bit of a deload or whatever it might be, a little bit of a transition across to things a bit more towards their sport. Yep. And then we've got December to build up. Naturally, the last 2 weeks of December are going to be pretty cruisy. But again, we just depend on the individual where they're sitting. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it rolls into preseason, usually weeks 1 to 3 of January. But at least we can back off, build up to the start, middle of December. And then from there, have a little bit of another, again, that's our, in brackets, off season. Yeah. Then we start to transition to preseason. And then we know that if you start January 1, probably a good idea around that Christmas period to still keep up your runs and a few bits and pieces. But that's where we talk about, like, that kind of where preseason is, like, what's your non-negotiables of stresses that you need to keep on your body. Probably don't need to be smashing super heavy weights if you got limited time, whatever it is, but you might need to keep your runs. That's a non-negotiable because you're going to be running 30 Ks in the preseason. Yep. So you just ask those questions, what I need to keep.
What's the minimum that I need to just keep some load on the system? So
and it's another experiment.
Experiencing those massive loads. Yeah, I think that's huge. I thought of something and now I've forgotten. Oh, no. Test and retest. So obviously, like with our combine, that just gives a very easy chance for us to test and retest. Mm-hmm. But there's little things like if you're not training here or you're not able to make the combines or whatever, like implementing some, because you want some sort of measure that I'm getting better as well. Like you want to know that your work is going to what you thought it was, and then the confidence like that gives you as well going into preseason. Be like, I am stronger, I am faster, I am fitter.
I am him.
Thanks for your input, mate. ADD's kicking in there.
Oh no, the third coffee's not sitting well. We're sitting so silently for a while. Had to add something in.
Welcome back.
Short little break.
So yeah, you want to know, like, again, coming back to the metrics, like objectively, I am better in these areas that I said I was going to get better on.
Yep.
And then the confidence that gives you going into preseason, knowing that you've got that under your belt, you've done the work, just like Benny said, knowing that you're going into each weekend, knowing that you've done the work, just like you're going into preseason, know that you're physically ready, like, I've done the work, versus like, oh, I'm not sure, like, am I going to be ready for this 2K? Am I going to be ready for this Bronco? Like, no, I've done some. Like, I know I'm ready for that. I'm feeling stronger.
You kind of like, you set on the back foot already. Like we see it with some of like our crew, you know, the ones that are going to have a big year because they're heading into it with that attitude of like, I've done everything. And it's like obviously the testing that we're trying to build into with these aerobic capacity testing and things like that, if you can start on the front foot, you've just set yourself up really well. And you've also just got to keep it like the overarching thought process of like the whole physical. If you can get the physical side of things really well, it's going to allow you to express the tactical and the technical side of things. So if you can just put this time in now to get all those little bits and pieces where they need to be, that's then going to give you the confidence. It's then going to give you the platform. So then when you do start to express it, and we're weeks 1, 2, 3 of preseason, and everybody else is really tired trying to mix their conditioning and their skills, you're expressing it, you're putting yourself at a higher chance of being selected, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. This is like I think Benny said it perfectly as well. Shout out Ben Cowdre.
Again,
old man wisdom, bro. I'm telling you.
But he said, you know, like one thing that he wishes was just start earlier.
Yeah.
It's like everyone has that. You do that first 2K on the first preseason, you're like, fuck, probably should have done some running.
I mean, it's
like, don't have that. Like,
the amount of people that will come up after a soft tissue injury and be like, oh, I need help now. It's like,
And I think there's nothing worse than like knowing that the players that you like, they have an injury from last year and you thought they were going to fix it. And they just come back with the exact same shit. And you're just like, fuck, what did you do that whole off season? Oh, no, nothing. Just sitting down, just sinking piss, bro splits.
Push-pull legs.
Oh, my lower back's cooked, but I'm still going to do heavy deadlifts. Sweet, bro. Like, no worries.
Just a little coach's rant. He's just letting it out. He's just letting it out.
Isaac doesn't rant, so Keith makes up.
Never.
But it is, like, as a coach, like, obviously we're not not actual on-field coaches, like a team coach. We're S&C coaches, but there's nothing worse than, like, being a head coach of a team and then knowing that their player's got an injury and then next year he's coming back with the exact same injury.
Yeah, it's not a good
then the same, but then they're going to be like, oh, why am I not getting picked?
Yeah. I wonder why.
I don't know, bro.
You tell me, bro.
Before this goes rogue, is there anything else we want to talk about for off-season? Anything else we want to important? So obviously we've spoken about the start, having a break, goal setting, what we're going to do, gradual build-up, obviously around pre-season, the timing and things like that. Any other bits and pieces we want to add in? I feel like we've covered.
I think without going too much in depth into any of the topics themselves, which I think they could probably be separate podcasts in themselves, that I think that lays out a good roadmap for you. So, I guess like tying it all in now. So like you're going to start off, give yourself a bit of a break, have that break, reassess the year that was, have conversations with your coaches, set some goals, and then get on top of any injuries, niggles, that kind of thing. That's going to be the priority at the very start. And then going in, then you're going to be looking at very general physical preparation and then also a general skills preparation, trying to expose yourself to some different skills and laying that foundation for the more specific things later. Then as you progress, then you're going to be starting to try have chats with coaches, try have chats with the S&C staff on the teams. What's the loading going to look like? Cool. This is what I'm reverse engineering. Then that back end of off season, we're getting a little bit more quote unquote specific. And then like we've got that combine at the start of December, but that's like probably when you're going to be doing a bit of retesting. So again, running it back to the start, try get some sort of initial testing so that you have something to compare against. And then have a little bit of downtime over that Christmas break. It's kind of built into, like most people are going to have a bit of downtime, but then also ticking off your essentials. If you are someone who's starting pre-season that first week of January, don't go do a really good job through off-season, then just have 2 weeks completely off, because we also see that.
Yeah.
And then you get a soft tissue injury week 1, and you're like, why did that happen? So trying to keep as much of that chronic load on as necessary, so that you're as best physically prepared for that first week of pre-season. And then whether you're fully in the hands of the coaching staff at the club that you're with, or if you're still working with us or another private sector, it's like, cool, this is when we're going to get a little bit more specific into, like it is in season, where it's a bit more adaptive. Like, all right, we had a really big running load. If I have a flat on Tuesday and Thursday, if I have a running session planned on Saturday with our field session, all right, we might adjust the volume accordingly. But again, that's where the communication side comes in, and being on top of all that. I think that lays out a really good roadmap and covers most of the bases for a successful pre-season and season next year.
Stuff, man.
Well, Keith says anything silly, I think let's wrap it
I
up.
like that. I like that. Come on now. Very good rap.
Want to sign out, Keith?
Actually, no, we got to finish off with a good one. So no one's left anything yet. This is tough, bro. It's fake fans.
Keith even made a post as well.
Yeah,
That's huge.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Actually, also, before I forget, big shout out to Jack Blackwell. If you've noticed, we've got 3 mics now. Shout out Marketplace as well. But Jack helped out and picked up one of the microphones for me, because it was closer to his house. So we really appreciate that.
Nice
And
guy.
hopefully the
Let's play
audio,
rugby next year.
hopefully the audio was a little bit better this time. So thank you, and thank you for anyone who's provided feedback as well. Constructive criticism is always
Anyone's
welcome.
actually just listened to this.
Yeah, if you got this far, that's.
I was
really
actually
impressive.
thinking, I've said this a couple of times. It's like, like Cert 3 and 4 is like a low barrier for entry.
Yeah.
It's like nearly anyone can do it. It's like podcasting. Literally anybody can pick up a microphone like us 3 and just run a podcast.
But I still think with podcasts,
And people listening to it.
I still think with podcasts, you need to actually get qualified to do a podcast, because fuck, there's so many stupid podcasts.
Well,
like
otherwise
this one.
Are you talking about yourself?
we wouldn't have a podcast.
Keith rejected.
So it's just me and Isaac. So it would just be
Yeah.
2 coaches,
Just
no
two.
half. If the name changes to 2, you know that podcast has introduced a new screening process.
No, but thank you for tuning in,
So
like
fun
always.
podcasting.
Yeah.
That'll do. Let's cut it.
It's comment
Thanks for-
off season.
Yeah. On anything of Keith's.
Yeah.
On Keith's phone number on 04.
Oh, damn it, cut out.
Damn.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to episode 6 of the 2.5 Coaches podcast. And we'll be back next week with
Q&A.
Q&A.
Oh, make sure you comment on the Q&A as well, please.
I'll cut that out, because when did we say that?
No, we just got Q&A next week.
Okay, apparently.
All right, we're doing a
Sorry,
Q&A according to
next
Keith.
week.
All right,
Thank
and
you.
Keith's actually going to put up a Q&A, so
Yeah.
make sure you ask a question. If you've listened this far, you know that Keith's going to put up a Q&A, and you're going to ask a question.
All right, goodbye.